when you're watching Captain Marvel. This is one of those movies. I mean, it's an origin movie. We're learning about her. This is our first introduction to her. Um, you know, I think this movie does good for what it's supposed to be doing. I don't think this late in the game, like in the overall Marvel movies, I don't think this was a good quote unquote sequence to introduce her in. Especially because she was so much earlier than the Avengers assembling. I feel like it's a little weird that she was never called in by Fury for the first Avengers or Avengers Age of Ultron or any of the other threats we were facing at the time. Like, I don't know, when Nick Fury was told that Thor visited the planet, I thought that would be another huge thing. But nonetheless, I think this movie is good at introducing her. I think this movie does a good job of, what's the right word? It's like they follow the line of like what they're trying to do or what it's trying to be. I like the 90s background of it. I thought that was fun. I like the scrolls shape-shifting or transforming aspect of their abilities and powers. I thought it made for some good comedy and some fun moments. I think after Avengers Infinity War, to get like a slow-paced kind of introduction to Captain Marvel, it's nice because she's new and it's different, but it feels a bit wrong because we're in such a high-intensity moment. To go back in time just to reveal a new strong character feels a bit like, I don't know, it feels like in the larger story, like where it fits, it pulls it back. Now, obviously, this is before anything ever happens with Thanos and basically the Infinity War saga and stuff. It's just merely to introduce this character, which I do like. And because she is the first Marvel, like, female-led superhero movie, they had to show us who she is and introduce us to her. And because of that, I think it comes across as a bit cheesy or a bit bland or basic, I would say. I think some of their themes or some of the main important things that they were pushing for this movie was a huge, like, girl power, empowering movie. It's like women are powerful as well, and it's really strong, and that is all very true. It's just a matter of like, there's a difference between showing it and then shoving it in our faces, if that makes sense. But I do think that they did it well, but compared to where we were at the time, I remember when I watched this in the movies, I liked it. I thought it was okay. I don't know how often I would go back to like rewatch it. I think you watch it once and you get the gist of it. You get what she did to overcome, I guess, the sort of obstacles that she was presented with her powers and then having to work for the Kree, losing her memory, all of that stuff. It's kind of like, okay, this is what happened to her. This is how she isn't aware of like a lot of things, I guess, or this is how she gets her powers. She's super strong. She's out in the galaxy doing whatever, and she finally gets help from Fury, or Fury asks for her help after all this time or whatever. Now, I say that a big part of this movie that's being held back is, in all honesty, it's her discovering who she is. It's one thing where it's like they're trying to, but it's important as well because otherwise she wouldn't be working for the Kree or working for the bad guys as we know it, I guess. I just think that the Skrull protection of the Skrulls fighting or trying to survive is the more, I feel like that's more the A plot, and the B plot is like, oh yeah, she's also lost her memory, doesn't know who she is, and she's piecing it together little by little, if that makes sense. But outside of that, I guess the emotional weight or the pathos of this movie is more so her finding her friends and forming bonds and having, people around her who care about her and whatnot. Although I did like, again, I do like that this movie is set in the 90s. It's shows us a young Nick Fury. It shows us a young Phil Coulson. It shows us it has some good 90s references. I thought I remembered there being like a Jim Carrey reference because he was what's it called? He was doing the movie The Mask, or I guess maybe The Mask had already come out, and so he's in like a green thing set up, and she thought that he was a Skrull or whatever, so she blasted it. I don't remember seeing that in the movie, but maybe it was in the trailer and they deleted it afterwards. It was like a deleted scene or whatever. But I thought it was funny that she crashed into a Blockbuster, and then the security guard points her to a Radio Shack. I thought that was funny. Brie Larson carries this movie quite well. I think she does a great job being the lead. I think she plays Carol Danvers with a wit and humor to her. She is very curious and also very strong, and I guess in a way she's learning as we're going through this movie. And then once she finally kind of learns about herself or figures out who she is or can stand on what she believes in, we get to see the strongest version of her, I guess. Her friendships and relationships to the two women that she's also friends with, I forget their names. It's Rambo something. I know the little girl is Monica Rambeau. I don't remember what the mom's name is. It's something. Anyways, all I know is that friendship is needed, but it's also kind of, I don't know what the right word is. It feels a little forced. It also feels like maybe they could have had more friends. I don't know. But I do think that it was cool to see the female, the women pilot, be out there. I thought that was very important, or that was a nice like direction that they could give future generations of like, look, Carol Danvers was an Air Force pilot, so you could also be an Air Force pilot, and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Again, that leads back to like the whole girl power. It's like it's always about like how can we uplift women and show women that you can be something great as well. Maybe not a quote unquote superhero like Captain Marvel, but you could be an Air Force pilot just like her. That's a great job. That's a great thing to try to become. So shoot for the stars, or, get up into the sky or whatnot. But anyways, I think that the Skrull plot of them being chased by the Kree and Captain Marvel, I guess, being brainwashed to think that they're the enemy, I think that's the most interesting part about this. I kind of wish that they had went a little deeper into it. And by deeper, I mean like maybe we learn a little bit more like of a Skrull resistance, or other people trying to help the Skrulls, right? Like, I feel like they could have gone a lot further with it. It seemed like, well, obviously the Skrulls are mostly on their own. They're being hunted by the Kree. The Kree are very powerful and I guess also bad people. And I also like that they brought in the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy. I forget his name. He's a good actor. Darn it, he anyways, he was in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's the one who first confronts Star-Lord, and Peter is kind of like, I'm Star-Lord, and he goes, who? And so it's kind of a callback to like, oh snap, he's a bad guy, and we get a callback to him there. They also show Ronan, I think he was leading the Kree. He was leading the Kree army or whatever they were back in the 90s, or what we call the 90s and stuff. Before he was Ronan the Accuser, I guess, or whatnot. Yeah, I thought that was also a cool callback. It just goes to show that, like, who she's working for or not. Well, it's inferred if, like, you watch it, you realize that, oh, snap, they're not the good guys, or it helps you piece it together. So if you've been watching the Marvel movies, it's like a little thing. If you haven't seen them, then this is kind of like a new thing, I suppose. But anyways, the action sequences with Brie Larson with Captain Marvel, I thought that they were pretty unique. They were quite fun. I liked when she was on the ship and they, like, put those things around her hands. I forget, they're not shackles. They're not like regular cuffs. They're just supposed to, what's it called? They're supposed to keep her from using her blasts from her hands or whatnot, right? So they put like these metal, I guess, arm cylinders or whatever. They put them around her arms or her hands so that way she can't blast with them. But she can still punch and she can still fight and kick and do all that stuff. I thought that was very unique. I thought that was really fun. And it forced her to kind of go hand to hand with it when she doesn't necessarily have to. Let me think. What else was there about that fight? There was also this great bit that that Captain Marvel does, or I guess Carol Danvers. I guess it doesn't really matter. But she was captured by the Skrulls. They were like looking through her memories to learn about her, who she is, and whatnot. And there was kind of this what's the right word? There's this great moment that happens when she's fighting the Skrulls, and one of the Skrulls screams in her face. You know how, like, you meet like maybe like a warrior or like an animal of some kind, and they go like, "Brah!" You know, they scream in your face or whatever. She does it right back, and she goes, "Ah!" in a funny way, and then she like punches him in the face or whatever. I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was a good bit. Okay. The next point, all right, the cat thing, it's funny. It's useful, I guess. I don't know, dude. I thought it was a bit like, I mean, obviously they threw it in there for comedic effect. It's a cat, but it's not really a cat. It's like some sort of alien. I thought there would be a little bit more, I don't know, what's the right word? I guess maybe there would be more to it. They don't particularly, it doesn't really change anything. They could change the story around it, or like get rid of it and then change the story to fit their needs as they need it. But I guess, you know, if it's there, might as well. It's a cute animal. So the only thing is that you see that how Nick Fury gets his eye scratched is because of that cat. Which I thought was, I thought it was lame, but, you know, funny, comedic moment. His big eye reveal was cut by a cat. I don't know, dude. There was also a Pulp Fiction reference in this movie, which I felt so out of place. We have Samuel L. Jackson in our movie. Let's do a Pulp Fiction reference. I didn't really see the need in it, but, you know, what are you going to do? It's right there. It's 1990. He's supposed to be, like, just made Pulp Fiction, I guess, so I guess that's a funny callback. I think it actually would have been a lot funnier if Samuel L. Jackson went to the video store and then, he saw his movie right there and he made a joke about it. I thought that would be funnier, but anyways. Man, I'm jumping all over the place with this movie. Let me think. There is, when the Skrulls are like looking for looking for Captain Marvel. They are whatchamacallit. She lands in that blockbuster, goes to Radio Shack, and then Shield, Nick Fury, Phil Coulson go over to talk to her, and then I thought that it was a really cool moment when one of the Skrulls transformed into Phil Coulson, and Phil Coulson radios into Nick Fury saying like, "Hey, I'm still here at the Radio Shack or at the blockbuster. You know what's going on?" And then Phil Coulson turns out to be one of the Skrulls, and then the Skrull and Nick Fury fight, and then the Skrull dies or whatever. I thought that was a really cool moment, like a nice little twist, a little deception. What else is there? I thought I thought Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers. I thought her fighting the old lady on that train. I thought that was hilarious. I thought that was really cool. That was a funny moment. What else is there? Oh, Stan Lee cameo. He was on that train and she was like inspecting him. He was like looking at a newspaper or whatever. And she looked at him and she was like, he smiled at her. She smiled at him. I thought that was a nice little cute moment between those two. Let me think. I mean, other than that, I feel like they just get a little sidetracked because I don't know. I feel like they get sidetracked because they try to do like at 1 minute they're hunting down the Skrull, the next minute they're hunting down her friends. I don't know. It seems all a bit mysterious at first, I guess. Or perhaps it slows down due to pacing issues. I don't know what the exact reason for feeling the way that like the plot doesn't pick up as much as it should, but I don't know. I guess I just kind of wanted it all like out of the way first. I wanted all of the oh my gosh, I'm actually Carol Danvers. You know, I wanted that kind of all out of the way instead of having to like incrementally learn about it or figure it out when it's like I guess it's more so we already know who she is or kind of like what she's supposed to be from the comics or whatnot. So to watch her kind of figure it out was, to me, it felt like it was dragging the story back between like what we were actually learning about. We were actually learning about the Skrulls. We were actually learning about their under threat from the bad guys, the Kree, that Carol Danvers has been working for after they kidnapped her after she got her powers from the Tesseract. And that was interesting. Learning about the explosion and how she came to be with those powers. I thought that was cool. I didn't think it was cool to basically... Okay, so when she's first captured, they could have gone through all of her memories and given it to us all right there, and then she would have questions about everything. And then she would need, like, physical proof to, like, maybe believe it. But I guess it does work better when it's, like, slowly revealed throughout the movie, huh? I don't know. What else is there? I thought Nick Fury did great in this movie. I thought he was pretty hilarious to see him. I can definitely tell now when Samuel L. Jackson swaps out for his stuntman. I thought it was like whenever he has to get kicked or hit or like thrown up into the air or whatnot, you can totally tell that like, oh snap, they cut away from the stuntman and then they cut back to Samuel L. Jackson just being on the ground and being like, oh my gosh, that was a crazy fight. You know what I mean? I thought that was really funny rewatching it. Let's see what else. I think that the Tesseract's involvement in this story is a bit weird, considering that S.H.I.E.L.D. was just... They had the Tesseract, but then they let this random lady just experiment with it and take it. Like, it didn't feel like it made any sense for that to happen because Howard Stark found the Tesseract, right? And then he also helped found S.H.I.E.L.D. So then, ergo, S.H.I.E.L.D. should be in possession of it. But I guess if she worked for S.H.I.E.L.D., then she took the Tesseract and was like experimenting on it, and thus the whole thing gets made, and then Carol Danvers gets like in the explosion, and then she gets the powers and whatnot. So, does it make sense? Yes. Is it a little weak in my opinion? Sure. Let's see what else is there. I thought the costume for Captain Marvel was awesome. I also like the Kree outfits, like what she was wearing before. I thought that was cool. I also thought it was cool. Oh, when she was flying out in space and she like finally got all of her powers, when she finally was like set free of the bounds that restrained her from the people above her, you know what I mean? I thought that was cool. They kind of gave her what's it called? Iconic helmet and hair, like the mohawk or whatever. I think that's the style of it, or what you see in the comics. That was a good little, I guess, nod to what she looks like in the comics, or like what she wears most of the time. I don't think it's her best look, but I definitely like that they showed that off. Jude Law, also in the movie, he does a pretty good job of being slightly an antagonist, I guess. I mean, it's part of a larger group of things, but he does a good job of being, I guess, the quote-unquote villain, or following the soldier following orders, who's like the bad guy. I wasn't like wowed by his performance, but he executes the character well. You can't really hate on it, right? He does what he's supposed to do. Let me think here. I don't know. What do you... There are a few moments where I feel like the comedic timing or the comedic relief, or like the dialogue was just a bit more like, hey, let's just fill up the space with some comedy, as opposed to really giving our characters anything to talk about. Like, I guess with Nick Fury and Captain Marvel, when they're like talking to each other, there are just certain quips that they give Captain Marvel that's like, all right, we get it that she's humorous, we get it, but I feel like maybe it was kind of, this is just a cheap joke, let's just throw it in, or let's just add this in there for a little bit of a punch-up, you know? It didn't feel like, it was kind of like, oh, that's funny, but I could do without it, I guess. You know, again, I think what I really like is watching how the Skrulls care for each other, seeing how they have endured so much and are just looking for something. They're just looking for a new place to live, looking for a new home, looking for somewhere they can live in peace without being killed, you know? And also at the same time, I feel like they did a good job of, I don't know, maybe making it a twist. I always thought that the Skrulls were bad guys. And maybe I'm right. Maybe they're comically evil. But this is a good subversion of that, I guess, in the movies, is that they're not bad per se, or I guess inherently. But maybe a few stray away. I don't know. But what I'm trying to say is that they've been done a massive injustice. And the fact that Captain Marvel is able to help them and wants to help them, and that's a huge accomplishment or a really good goal for this movie, is that she's a hero because she cares and she's willing to stand up to do the right thing and to help the people who need it, you know, after she's been lied to and deceived by the Kree. She herself is, I guess, a victim of their brainwashing or of their, I guess, kind of misuse of her, containment of her. They don't want her to be too powerful. They want to be in their control and whatnot. Let me see what else is there. You know, with this particular movie, I think that it's a shame the direction that they kind of went in, or how so late in the game we are to this story. Because if this story had happened, I want to say like back in 2013, like give us Thor: The Dark World, Iron Man 3, and Captain Marvel, I feel like we would be in a lot better of a position than we were, I guess, beforehand. Because by 2013, we already knew about the Tesseract, right? We already had an idea about it. So that would be pretty cool. Then by 2014, they would show Ronan now being called Ronan the Accuser, and he's working for Thanos and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot of, whatchamacallit? There's a good continuation of those characters. You know, we get to see them grow and what they were, you know, in the 90s to what they are in 2014. You know what I mean? So I thought that was that could have been a really cool tie-in to everything. Obviously, they weren't like on it like they were like maybe in 2017 when they were doing 3 movies a year. But my point still stands. If they had released Captain Marvel earlier in 2013, then I feel like her character would be a lot more established, and we could have gotten maybe an extra Captain Marvel movie in between, or we could have gotten her help in Avengers: Age of Ultron, perhaps, or in Guardians of the Galaxy she could have made an appearance, or in Thor: The Dark World they had that end credits scene with the Collector. I feel like that would have been a cool time to maybe have her pop in, or, you know, be on the planet or whatnot. You know, something like that. I think that it would have been cool to have her cameo in there. Let me see what else. It also would have introduced her in Avengers Infinity War, I guess, a lot earlier. Obviously, the story would have changed tremendously, but we don't know what the circumstances would have been. Would she have been in Captain America: Civil War? I imagine she would be a lot like in Thor's position, where she's like off-world doing another thing or whatnot, you know, maybe for the collective good, so she wasn't there. Maybe if she, I don't know. Guardians of the Galaxy 2? No, that was more of a personal story. Thor no. I'm just trying to see where she would fit in the larger story if she were brought in earlier. I guess we'll never know, huh? If they had brought her in, though, I feel like they would have been able to tie her in somehow, some way. Especially because there have been, like, I guess they have been floating around with the idea. They were thinking about bringing her in at the end of Avengers: Age of Ultron as like part of the Avengers group. They were going to like, oh yeah, let's just bring her in. Maybe for like the end. I don't know. But then we see, after all of the events of the movie, we see that Captain Marvel is taking the Skrulls to find a new home. The cat swallowed the Tesseract, so Nick Fury's holding on to it, to the cat, and then Nick Fury gets his eye patch, and then he comes up with the Avengers Initiative. It was originally called the Protectors, or the Protectors Initiative. But then after seeing Captain Marvel's ship or her plane say Avenger on it, he thought Avengers Initiative. Brilliant. And then that's how he came up with the idea, and that's how we got the Avengers today. That's why they're called the Avengers. I thought that was a nice little nod to it all. I don't remember all of the post-credit scenes. I think there were two, but I can't really recall it. Well, anyways, the most recent, the one that matters the most is the post-credit scene with Steve Rogers, Black Widow, War Machine, and I think Banner. They're all there, and Nick Fury sent out the homing beacon, he used his pager to contact Captain Marvel, and they were all like, oh snap, he contacted somebody. It's important because it's Nick Fury who did it. And so they're all kind of looking at it, but then it stops. And then Steve and Natasha and Banner and Don Cheadle are all there, and they're like, it just stopped. It just turned off. And then out of nowhere, they're like, all right, get it back up. I want it back on first thing. And then they turn around and it's Captain Marvel, and she's like, where's Fury? And that's the end of the movie. That's kind of the nod to Avengers Infinity War and how we get Captain Marvel back in the next Avengers movie, Avengers Endgame. So I thought that was cool. Again, this movie had a lot of good things going for it. It also had a little nitpicks here and there that you could pull back from it. I think it was a little bit bland, a little bit basic. It could have been a little more interesting, but, I feel like for an origin, like a superhero origin story, I feel like they did this one clean cut and simple. It doesn't have to be, it wasn't anything too crazy, but it also wasn't anything too bad. It was just right in that sweet spot of like, this is the character, this is who she is, she learns about herself, and she has a mission to help the Skrulls and help other people, I guess, End story, good times, and she'll be back to help the Avengers in the next movie. So I thought that was a nice little sentiment to it. Oh my goodness. What was it? I think it was towards the end of the movie where Captain Marvel is fighting the Kree. She finally turns on them, or like she figures out that the Kree are bad people and she starts fighting against them or whatever. And they played I'm Just a Girl by No Doubt or Gwen Stefani. I don't remember if it was her band No Doubt or if it was like her own solo song, but they were playing I'm Just a Girl, and she's fighting with it, and I thought that was beyond cheesy. I was like, okay, this is where they're like force feeding you this, like I'm just a girl and now I'm fighting and I'm powerful. I was just kind of like, come on, like I get it, I know what you're doing here, but you're you know what I mean? You're force feeding me here. You're taking it. You're literally shoving it down my throat right now. I was like, all right, I get it. I thought it was a bit much. Obviously, the song is great, but I was like, in that moment, they couldn't have picked any other '90s song. They couldn't have picked anything else that was a lot more rock or a lot more fun. Like, come on, you know what I mean? I feel like that was a bit like, oh, we're going to just throw this song in there because she's a girl and she's our first female lead. So, okay, it was a bit annoying, I won't lie, but, what am I supposed to think here? You know what I mean? It's not my fault they waited until 2019 to release a female lead superhero movie. And I gotta be honest, they should have done a female-led hero movie with Black Widow way earlier, okay? And we'll come to see that she will get her own movie, but, we'll talk about that later. But my point being is that they waited too long to give any female superhero the time of day. And it was just like, you're late to the party here, so now I have to, I don't want to say be like, given or like forced to have this thing, but I was like, yo, come on, is there... All right, whatever. I'm done talking about that. I think the final thing about this movie, when you're watching Captain Marvel, I think you have to... Obviously, you have to have like a pre-existing... If you watch this movie without, I guess, knowing the grander or like the full Marvel story, then this is just a pretty good movie. It's a pretty good movie. But if you get the added context of the whole Marvel universe, the Marvel story, it's nice, but then it kind of puts into question like, okay, where was she during big important moments, like I said before? Why didn't Fury call her earlier? Why is she only being called now? It just feels like there's a lot that was being... There was a lot of things that went wrong, per se, because they waited so long to introduce her. But I guess don't worry about what has been out, what took so long to get her here. Just be glad that she's here at all. And I think that she's a very important and much needed superhero. She's extremely powerful, and I think that's cool. So anyways, when you're watching Captain Marvel, be ready for a little bit of a science fiction action adventure, I guess, if you want to put it that way. It's more so of a investigation or a hunt, but it ends up being a rescue mission and a save the day kind of thing. So it all ends up working out in the end. I think that she has, because she's so powerful, she has such a high potential for being interesting and for facing like other threats or bigger, larger, and stronger threats than I guess we've ever really seen until now with like Thanos and whatnot. So I don't know. But she is interesting, I will say. She's very interesting, and the fact that she's been gone for so long or has been working on helping people all this time while she was gone, it just goes to show, it's probably like, she probably has so many stories or so many adventures of like helping people, saving people, being a hero, failing people, or, trying her best on one planet, but then there's another planet that needs her. So it's all about like, how do we juggle all of that, I guess, or how do you become an intergalactic hero? You know what I mean? You can't save everybody. So it's just interesting, that's all. But anyways, Captain Marvel, it's a good movie. I think there are certain parts of it I want to rewatch. I don't think I could like sit and rewatch the whole movie, but I do like the action sequences. I do like Brie Larson does a great job, and Samuel L. Jackson, he's just a really good fit to all of this. He's a good tie-in, from finding or being the founder of the Avengers and him also being connected to Captain Marvel. It all fits. It's really cool. So anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you guys all next time. Thank you.